Wow, that was fast. Like, instantly, I got a fucking thinger. Alright, let's do this.
Hello, you are listening to Jump and Shoot, a gaming podcast, and today is a new entry into our Sidequests series, which is a series of live streamed kind of from the hip episodes about a topic of the co-hosts choosing. I can't even speak today. Uh, and today I'm joined by Mr. John,
Hey, how's it going?
whom you may remember. And what are we talking about today, John? What is the subject?
Pokemon.
Okay.
No, it's not. We're talking about Final Fantasy VIII, the best Final Fantasy game of all time.
Is that irony?
No, it's flesh need.
Ah, okay. Honestly, I'd be okay with that. This is a weird divisive game. So,
Final Fantasy VIII?
yeah.
Weird and divisive? Are you sure? Are you sure we're thinking of the same game?
I get them confused. So,
We're... Oh, you're... That's right. I was thinking of Final Fantasy IX, the best Final Fantasy game of all time.
I don't want to get ratioed on Twitch for my thoughts on FF9. But yeah, no, we're talking about Final Fantasy VIII. And for those of you who may not have listened to the series before, it's just very free form, kind of straightforward discussions with the buds over here. We have our chat open, and it's just like more of a stream than a traditional kind of podcast. And but before we go in to the episode today, I'd like to take a word from our sponsor, Grandmaster Norg VPN, who has, if you are browsing the internet or your garden without Norg VPN, you're doing it wrong, man. So make sure to do that and get Norg VPN. It's funny because I often like set a price for how much I'd be willing to sell out,
Yeah.
and it's got to be pretty high, I think.
Yeah?
What about you? What's your number?
Depends on what product I'm shilling.
What if it's
Like,
NordVPN?
I mean, a grand. Why not? $500. I'm
US
good.
or Canadian?
US.
Okay.
No, our dollars in the. It's pretty bad right now.
Okay, I just want to make sure. And tonight we're joined by the best looking guy here, which if you have your video open, it's this boy. And if you don't, I'm sorry that you don't, because you get to see how gaunt I look in this light. So, John, let's talk about FF8.
Let's dive right into it. Where do you want to begin?
You know what? Let's start with the best looking guy here.
Well, Leonheart or Lionheart?
Lionheart, yeah. It's kind of crazy that people know Squall from Kingdom Hearts and not Final Fantasy. I always thought that was wild.
Right?
It's weird.
I'm grateful for Kingdom Hearts for introducing, like Final Fantasy to a broader audience. Like I have cousins who have only played like Kingdom Hearts, and they're like, "Hey, I know Cloud, I know Leon." I'm like, "That's well, how dare you?"
Leon the Professional, actually.
Yeah.
That should have been, damn. Maybe that was intentional. I don't know. Probably not. I think the whole Leonheart thing is obviously tied to Griever, but we can get into that later. But yeah, no, so let's talk about Squall for a second. I want to say that Squall is probably one of my favorite Final Fantasy protagonists. And okay, so when I first played this game, I was in the throes of like edgy preteen angst because I think I was like 12 when this game came out. So
You're 32, right?
yes. I mean, like, I was trying to like make it sound like I was offended, but like I basically just told everybody how old I was anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I
Um,
was trying to think because I know I was like really young when I played it. I was like super hype about it.
yeah. So you know what? Actually, let's backtrack. Let's talk about when we first played this.
All right. That's a good jumping off point.
So did you play it when you? Let's just like we'll jump off and then like fall to our deaths and then pick ourselves up. That's why it's freeform, baby.
Phoenix, bro. Phoenix.
Oh yeah,
Rebirth.
or re-raise. Wait, fuck. Why am I forgetting this? Does FF8 have a re-raise?
No.
I don't.
Like
Yeah, no,
like Phoenix does Rebirth.
yeah. But
That's
like
it.
that's it. Yeah, okay. Because that's always the most broken thing in Final Fantasy. But FF8 has its own share. Either way, so yeah, did you play this when it was new, like when it first came out?
Uh, God, honestly, I can't remember. It was definitely within the first year, and I remember having like no idea because I was hot off of FF7 and like the junction system and like all of that. Like, I was probably like 9 or 10, but when I played it, and I was just like so confused. Like, I just want to know what's happening. I just want to know what's going on.
Yeah, it's not the game for that. I don't think.
I mean, not for like a 9-year-old trying to.
No, and that's a cool subject to broach, I think too. But yeah, I played it when it first came out too. I remember the pre-release screenshots blowing me away, and I remember some kid that who I was friends with, saying something along the lines of like, dude, so what's the difference between a movie and Final Fantasy VIII? And I remember telling him to shut up. I don't know why. It just like really pissed me off as an 11-year-old. It's just, oh, what's up, Kudo? What's up, man?
Is he?
Yeah, he just says hi. Talking about FF8, which is probably his favorite subject. But
I was gonna like say like that would be the dude because he did an excellent write up on Squall at one point.
oh yeah. You know what? Now
You remember that?
yeah. So when we talk about the original thing that we were talking about, I'll cite my sources for the Final Weapon X4 write up. But yeah, so I played it when it first came out too, and I remember loving the intro, the whole beginning sequence.
Like Liberi Fatali.
Yeah, and just like the garden was so surreal. It was such a unique. I had never really. I mean, I had watched Evangelion and Dragon Ball Z. I had like a very vague idea of what shonen was, but
Yeah.
I obviously didn't know that word. I was a stupid American kid, a boomer American kid. But yeah, I was like really enthralled with it. But like a lot of the gameplay systems, went over my head. And then so I don't. You know what? I don't think I finished it. I think I grinded to Oblivion in disc 1, and then I just put it down. Okay, because my dad had this thing where I could only have one system hooked up at a time. And so during my time of FF8, I wanted to play something on N64. And he was like, no, we can't do that. We have to unplug the PlayStation if you want to put in the N64. So I was like, all right, you weirdo. Sure.
Yeah.
So just like, whatever. And so then about a year went by, and then the PC version came out. And I got that, and then I played through that instead. So I got the shitty, nerfed MIDI versions of all the songs. So that hurts.
I'm actually like remembering now. I remember the first time I played through it, I never beat it either. I got to the missile base, and I died every time.
Oh yeah. As you do.
Yeah. It was either something that I missed, or when I got to the boss would just annihilate me with the beam cannon. And I don't think for our like several years after that, I didn't even bother. And then I came back to it, and I was like, yeah, I'm destroying you all. It's a good time.
I don't know if you just heard that, but my dog is just like having a nightmare. Sorry. It sounded like somebody was like a ghost was in the other room. Oh yeah,
That's
full
freaky.
disclosure, we'll be talking spoilers.
I
Sorry.
mean, spoilers for a 20-something-year-old game.
Squall dies. Nah, he doesn't. That's a theory
That
though.
that is a theory. I
But
like
yeah,
that
I
theory.
got blocked by Adia. That's what got me.
You're blocked by idea.
Or is wait, no, what's her name? Adele in the final act of the game where you have to like fight
Like
Adele.
right before disc 4, you fight Adele, and then they do
You can't
the
hurt Renoa, and all I
the
had were like multi attack magic stuff.
bro. You
And
use magic.
dude, I was a dumbass. I refused to learn the systems, and so when I got it on PC, I actually still grinded hardcore,
Yeah.
and it was just Riker. Are you okay? He would do this. He's like completely silent all day, and then when I podcast, he's like, "Okay, it's time for me to make noise, man. It's fine." But yeah,
Can I
I
just say
grinded
something
like
real
hell
quick?
and made the end game hard.
Of course, your dog's name is Riker.
It was between there's a lot of considerations, dude. His name when I got him was Blackie. I don't know what the fuck people were like. It
What?
was like some dumb idiot white guy who owned him too. So it's like,
That's like such a like non-name.
yeah, exactly, dude. The worst part is that he's like equal parts white and black. I think he's like probably has more white on him than not, and so it's like it's such a it's like a 2-year old's name. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, so the PC version was what I knew mostly. So life was hard, but that PC version it came with the that little mini game. Oh, what's it called? The Chocobo mini game. You know what I'm talking about?
Pocket Station one
Yeah, the Pocket Station thing.
that came on the PC version. Cool.
Yeah, so that's
I had no idea. I thought it was literally like region locked to Japan because you needed the Pocket Station to play the thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, but it was you can go in the install files and pull it up. I remember like discovering it like it was some secret treasure. And I think it said it in the manual. Oh, the package for it? I have it somewhere. The package for the it's so cool, dude. It like it hit a gatefold. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
I'm sure Kudo has it because he has literally everything.
You've got a crazy collection.
We're just here. This is just a Kudo fan podcast.
All I have is a PlayStation Classic. Okay.
That sucks for you. And it's Super Nintendo Classic, clearly.
No, that's just a box.
Mm.
I'm just kidding. Of course I have it.
He just bought the box on eBay. That's it.
Yeah, just set dressing.
Hell yeah.
Hey guys, look at my box.
So, speaking of boxes, let's talk about Squall now, for real. Tell me about Squall. What are your thoughts?
I think he's one of the more better, well written protagonists in a Final Fantasy game. Just because you find out more, like the game is basically his thoughts and like more tailored around him as opposed to the group of as a whole. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think of like how to word this properly, but you find out more about like him and his feelings and his motivations than you do over like Zidane or like Titus, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Just
so
because you get that inner monologue,
yes,
and
and
it's super prevalent over a lot of key points in the game.
so I would say FF8 in contrast to FF7 is about like Squall's is a more like personal psychological discovery of Squall's like emotional journey.
Yeah.
than 7 is about clouds, because to me, like FF7 stuff with cloud is like awesome, but it's very twisty. It's kind of just there. Like a lot of the things are kind of just like big subversive twists, like the whole thing with FF7 is like Cloud kind of being like, where do I begin and Zack ends, or vice versa, right? And
Yeah,
then
but that's kind of like the point of FF7 though. Like
mhm,
that, like his like I'm trying to think of the words. Like how sorry. How where he starts and or where Zack starts and Cloud ends, like that's kind of one of the main points of Final Fantasy VII.
mhm,
Whereas it's not really so much like that in 8. 8's a lot more like in your face about like here is my mental state and I'm
yeah,
going to take you through the entire journey. Whereas like you're right, 7 is this Cloud or is this not Cloud? Like where does it begin and where does it end? And then you get to Medial and like you really start to take apart the three big like sections of his personality and to understand. And like you're right, it is like a twist.
but it's like, okay, so Cloud is like there retroactively, essentially, but Squall like has things happen to him as a sort of developed person. So
I
like
got
his journey is more like, and because it's important to bring up his journey because the game is like almost entirely centered around Squall's. It's the Squall show basically.
yeah.
I would even argue more so than FF7 is Cloud story. Like I think Squall story is like so prominent in this game
It
that like it.
it literally is Squall's story. Whereas like 7 is Cloud's story, but it's also Zack's story and Sephiroth's story and Aerith's story just as much almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And 8 is like, and for better or worse, I think that's the thing with 8. And so, but like having this character who's already like resolute and like who knows who he is and what he sort of wants, is really refreshing
Yeah.
after 7, I think, because not that I love Cloud, but it's just like a different pace, and I
Yeah.
think
Oh,
that
absolutely.
that's awesome. I mean, there's
I
some
think
similarities though.
for sure. I think a lot of the reason why 8 wasn't like so well received too is like everybody always like and this even still goes on today. Everybody always talks about like the moody teenager, like oh he's such a moody teenager. Dude, I'm almost 30 and I'm playing through this game and I'm like I understand like your thought process because like I've gone through things and I feel that way some days too. It's like it's easy to write it off as oh he's just being a moody teenager, but like as mental health and stuff like that becomes more prevalent in society and like we create more conversations around it, like this is actually a good game to understand somebody's like thought processes and like how they distance themselves as like a way to protect themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very it's way more introspective, I
Yeah,
think, than 7. And it's like I'm only comparing it to 7 just because, proximity and like it came out around this time and this is what the zeitgeist of JRPGs was like.
absolutely.
So I'm not like trying to say, oh, 8's better than 7 or 7's better than 8. I'm just, trying to provide historical context, I guess, for the sake of discussion. But
For
yeah,
sure.
I don't even think Squall is that moody. He just like kind of he knows what approach works for him, and I hear that all the time, like, oh, he's so edgy, and he's like, he just doesn't.
What is that?
It's
Like
kind of bullshit. I don't know.
what is that thing though? Like, oh, he's so edgy. Like, but why?
Whatever, whatever.
Yeah,
Like it's
I.
just Squall is
It's a
the.
defense mechanism though. Like, you know what I mean? Like he so clearly says it throughout the game. Like he puts up these walls to keep people out because he doesn't want to let people in because it will hurt him. And it's like, yeah, you can write it off as it's edgy. He's being edgy, but it's just a self defense mechanism. That's all it is.
And I think it's a pragmatic one too, because he very much says also, I forgot the exact quote, but he's like, it's very clear that he takes that approach so that he can make the best decisions. Like Squall is the most like practical, pragmatic, just like kind of resourceful protagonist. Like a lot of
For
times
sure.
he takes like a neutral standpoint or tries. He's like diplomatic. Like
That's
when
true. Yeah.
when they're talking about going on like the first like mission with Renoa and like whatever, he's like, well, how is this going to affect both sides? Like, how is this going to
Yeah.
affect the other gardens? And he's like, he says something like, well, I would be pissed too if people were just invading my home, you know? And it's like, you don't really see too many Final Fantasy protagonists atop or adapt that kind of like Jean-Luc Picard level of diplomacy, right? And
You're right. Yeah.
and I mean, Cloud was pragmatic too, but he was more so like it's a little bit different, you know. It's way more like ingrained in like his, I guess, conditioning or whatever. But with Squall, it's
Yeah.
like like he's just just a very practical dude, and he's actually like is extremely capable too. But he knows his limits. Like in the beginning of the game and up until you beat him, pretty much, Cipher, or is it Cipher or Cipher?
I call him Cipher.
Okay, I think it's Cipher, but I called him Cipher as a kid, so I just think of Kiefer Sutherland whenever
Oh,
whenever I say that.
Kiefer. Yeah, you're right. Oh God, I fucking hope that's not it.
No, I don't. I think it's Cipher, but like up until the end of the game, like Cipher's like way better than Squall. He's like
He
cooler.
is. Yeah.
He's like more competent and whatever. I mean, I still like Squall better. But I think like, you know, in terms of actual practice, you know, he's a little bit
Yeah.
lacking. And
One thing that like I sorry to cut you off
no, go.
because I recently just played through FF8, right? What the fuck was his romantic dream?
Just being useful, like having.
Being useful in general,
I think just like
having a purpose.
having a purpose, yeah, like having something to be loyal to. I think one really interesting thing is that remember FF8 is in this like kind of weird like semi postmodern world, and he has like a kind of backward romantic view on things, like almost like a monarchical kind of like, I want to be the queen's knight, right?
Gotcha.
I want
Yeah.
like almost like conservatively, and
Yeah, well,
this is in a world where that's not really a thing anymore. Technology is like randomly erupted, and now you have floating gardens, right? And so like to me, that's like an interesting way of contrasting new versus old school kinds of thinking. And I think also just sort of it contrasts the romance of Squall and Renoa's relationship too, I guess, like a different aspect of romanticism, which
I got you. Yeah,
which
that makes
also
sense.
ties into classic Final Fantasy to me, because Final Fantasy started as high fantasy with like some subversive like sci-fi twists, right?
Yeah.
And like a major tenet of Final Fantasy since FF1 has been, where's the post-modernity in here? Like in FF1 it was the time paradox, and FF2 it's like now we're in heaven and hell, and 3 it's like the separate worlds, parallel worlds. 4 is the moon. So like
I just had a thought about their relationship, and like it might be like it's I don't know. But it kind of reminds me, like Cypher and Squall kind of reminds me, you know, a bit of Kane and Cecil,
Yeah, I was
like,
gonna.
a bit darker, you know what I mean?
It's a really similar cadence for sure. Because, you know, obviously, again, Cypher really wants that kind of appreciation, whether it
Yeah.
be romantic or, you know, platonic or like whatever. He
Just something like a purpose, a reason. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
And I think that something about like Cypher always kind of like looks at Cloud or at Squall in a kind of like I almost want to say envious way. Like there's just something about him that there's like a mutual respect and admiration between those
There
two
is.
characters.
Absolutely.
And it's never really explicitly stated what it is exactly, but you kind of
Somebody
infer.
somebody hints. I can't remember who it is, but it's towards the end of the game. And it might be after you beat him once, but somebody says something about their relationship. Maybe it was actually like Eddie Adea? How do you I don't know how you say her name.
I just say Adia or Adea, yeah.
Adea? Okay. Maybe it was her in like a flashback or something, but there's something about their relationship that's brought up as like he's jealous of Squall or something because of how he is with Alone or something. Something along those lines. I can't remember exactly,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
but maybe that's like what was his driving force to become the Sorceress Knight and to build this romantic dream.
Yeah, I see that too. Yeah, like the final nail in the coffin that, devotes him purely to
Well, the
Canehood.
first nail
The
in
first
the
nail, yeah,
coffin.
yeah. Like yeah, the beginning of the Cain rather.
Yeah.
Raising Cain, I guess. Yeah, I think there's a lot of parallels between Squall, Cipher, and Renoa, and Cain, Cecil, and Rosa for sure. And I think that just like one of the prevailing thematic things about Final Fantasy is the reuse of concepts or themes or whatever in different settings.
For sure. Or even I would say like an expansion of ideas as the time went on. Like it's possible Sakaguchi like thought of like these ideas and he's like, hey, like let's go back here and grab this and maybe we'll expand on it in this. You know what I mean? Like maybe not exactly as that, but you can see
Yeah, like
like
iterative.
chunks of older works in the later works. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a really good example of this is the Empire. I mean, granted, it's obviously a Star Wars rip or influence,
Just
but
like all of FF12.
just like all of but like I mean, so it starts off in FF2, and then you have the Empire, and then
Yeah.
it's kind of in 4 with the Red Wings and blah blah blah, and then it really hits critical mass in 6,
Yeah.
and then it's kind of like so it's like there. Now we hit our critical mass with this theme, and now it's kind of just proliferated ever so slightly in other games in the series, which is really
Yeah.
interesting. But you bring up a good point about that, and I think considering FF8 in the context of Final Fantasy is a really interesting thing to discuss because this is the game that like shifted Final Fantasy, I think, more than any other title in the series, I want to say,
Honestly,
because of 7.
I would say that both 7 and 8 were such like cuz 7 is straight up like diesel punk. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of things that are like
Bro,
Final
it's
Fantasy like
Diesel.
diesel punk. Google it. I'm not going to explain it to you.
Vin Diesel. No, I know. I
Oh,
was just being a
gotcha.
butt.
Gotcha. Sorry. But like even FF7 in general, and like if you really know FF7 and like the aesthetic and everything, there aren't many fucking games out there that are like that game. Like purely aesthetically and everything. It really like such a monumental shift away from like 6, which was like half technological, half old school. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
then 8 took everything to a whole new level that was like here's like a 100% sci-fi and futuristic, and like for me it was like this is so fucking cool, like this is the shit that I want.
yeah. No, that's exactly what I mean about like a major shift because it's like even 7, like was not like fully leaning in a direction completely until 8, and I think after 7 there was this pressure for Square to be bigger and bigger, with these games.
Oh, for sure.
And I think for better or worse, that is kind of 8. I think that's why you have this extremely grandiose romance plot. That's why you have a story that like seems to bring in every single fucking thing that Final Fantasy has ever done in a really almost haphazard way. But I mean, it has time travel, it has like robots, it has magic, it has school, aliens, space. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah. So I think like there was part of the game shortcomings maybe, or maybe the reason why to me it's like such an interesting game to look at is because of that legacy and how it was going to be affecting the series moving forward. And not just setting wise, but just like in terms of philosophy. I mean, look at the systems of this game. It tried to make things more streamlined in a really weird way, right? Like the whole point was so you go through the game and you can grab magic off things and then make your stats increase from there, so you don't have to go around in the overworld and fight stuff in between big story points, although you can if you want.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, people always say FF7 is the first real, like, super linear Final Fantasy. You know, 6 or 7, people say that a lot.
Really?
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, even, it's not necessarily true because I think every Final Fantasy is pretty linear except maybe 1 and 3. Parts of 3.
Parts of 3. Yeah, maybe not. But, like, everything has a set path that the story needs to follow on. Mm-hmm. And like, bonus stuff spread out.
Yeah.
So I really, like, besides maybe 3, I haven't played 3 in years, so I can't attest to that. But you know what I mean? Like, they're all linear. It's just they all have bonus stuff sprinkled throughout.
Exactly.
Linearity.
Exactly.
To break up the, I don't know, monotony, I guess?
Yeah, and 8 has a more streamlined approach to that, because I think 8 was the first game in the series that Square realized that people were playing this for the story now, because it started to it had broken through the mainstream. Yeah. You know? So 8 was the first game that like Square had sold so many copies of this game that was like, now JRPGs are like everywhere in a console that...
You mean 7?
Oh yeah, 7 sold so many things that it put Square on the map in terms of that. And now JRPGs are becoming this like burgeoning market, this burgeoning form of storytelling. And this is the first game that, like, I think presented to the audience that there's this pretense that this is a very story-driven experience, and this is what you have your expectations, and now let's meet them.
Yes.
And I think that a part of that, the design process to that, was how they structured the pacing of the game. So I hear a lot of people all the time complain that this game, like, is more linear, or it feels like suffocating or whatever. But I think this is one of the most open Final Fantasies, to be honest with you, because you have a lot of options. I mean, granted, people might not like those options. Not everybody likes playing triple triad.
For sure. But that in itself gives you so many options at a lot of points in the game. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, every 10 fucking steps you take, there's a card battle. And then, like, the Queen of Cards and all that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you gotta change the rules. Random is best.
Right. No.
What do you mean? Random is best.
I like how you're going into Seinfeld territory with this. Like, oh, what do you mean I gotta change the rules? What's the deal with all these triple triads?
Want a Thornberry card?
Thornberry King is better. Let's be real. But yeah, no, and then, like, not only that, but you have a lot of side quests, and there's the concept of the mission grades. Sorry. What?
You're right. I was actually just thinking about this, but like the side quests, like when we were talking about the linearity of the game, the side quests in that game are like Poo Poo the alien. What the fuck is that?
Oh,
How are you
dude.
supposed to know to go to this random lake and an alien's gonna show up? You know what I mean? Like it had some of the most like cool, inventive little side quests out there. And then like weapon modding and all that stuff too, you know what I mean? Like
So, we were just talking about how this game had to appeal to the mainstream in a very specific way.
yeah.
And like this is the first game with like major mainstream ambitions and pretenses and so on and so forth. That being, and it definitely carries that weight, but at the same time, it is one of the fucking weirdest games. It is like one of the strangest Final Fantasies. Like, yeah, the poo poo thing, like what? Like you can tell, like the developers had just watched X Files or something and were really
Dude, for
influenced
sure.
by it, and it just
Just so random.
it's
It's like let's throw some alien conspiracy magazines in the game
Mm.
and see if anybody just like goes to the lake. You know what I mean? Just
yeah.
like this random. It's not even like marked on the map or anything. It's just a random square of water.
And I
Let's
think
just
that
see what
that's like
happens.
supposed to highlight some of the modernity of the game or the post modernity of the game about being like, this is more like closer to a real world setting than than anything that we did before. So
For sure.
let's throw in some things that may be more similar to like a real world fantasy or sci-fi rather than just like a high fantasy thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And plus, weren't there magazines? Yeah, there were magazines in FF7, right? That you had a. Oh no, the
You're thinking of
posters,
the turtle
Turtle
Club?
Beach or whatever. Turtle Beach.
I thought Turtle Beach too, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, that's a headset.
What?
Turtle Paradise.
Turtle Paradise. Yeah, a game I've beaten like 12 times easy, and I don't remember shit like this but I can remember every single one of the like nearly 1,000 Pokemon. I don't know. My brain is just
Can you?
mush.
Can you really?
I mean, I can't recite them, but I.
What's this?
Oh, dude, that's Garrett. No,
Charmander.
it's Charmander. Yeah. I love how you just pulled that out. By the,
I got a bunch of Pokemon beside me.
I see the Gengar. I see the poo poo over there. He's haunting. But sorry. That concept with the magazines and the Timber fan stuff is. I just realized is
yeah.
gameplay very reminiscent of FF7's Turtle Paradise stuff, except
Yeah,
that
for
they
sure.
they went for more full force with it. Also,
Well, like the Timber Maniacs quest line
Timber
too.
Maniacs.
Like, yeah, it's such a weird random quest line, and it never once is like, yeah, you're doing something here. Just like you read a book, congrats. It's like, all right, thanks.
bro, can I just Timber fans? I think I mixed Tinder and OnlyFans
Oh. I'm gonna
together.
make a shirt. Timber fans.
Oh man,
We're just fans of that bass line.
that's what it
You
is,
know
man.
the one.
Hmm.
The bass
Nice.
line in Timber. So good. So good.
Oh, and even its soundtrack is wacky as hell. Like Man with the Machine Gun, like that being conceptually in a Final Fantasy game at the time was like insanely mind blowing to me. Like,
We're finally on the perfect topic.
mhm.
Because for years, I have been telling people the Extreme is the best final fucking boss fight music of all time. Nobody believes me.
Hey, but I gotta say, Dancing Mad.
Dancing Mad's great. Okay, everybody's all like, Dancing Mad's got like 4 parts to it. Dude, Ultimisia's whole fight is
has,
like
yeah.
4 different songs,
Mhm.
and then the Extreme. And like, oh, dude, the moment when it kicks in and it's like that, like, and it's like all like warpy, and then the piano kicks in, and then she's like rising from like the void, and she's like faceless, and she's like, I am the end of time, and I'm like, this is fucking creepy. I love it. And like the extreme just kicks in, and I'm like, yeah, dude, it's so good, so good.
And following that whole dungeon too, the one of the weirdest dungeons in Final Fantasy. It just I hate it, but I love it. But no, the
Oh, Mimi's
extreme is
Battle?
yeah,
It's great.
so weird.
It is weird.
I love the extreme because the moment that the FF bass line kicks in that song, it's like you lose it,
The
man.
the violins, like oh man,
It's so
so
good.
good. I
Uh,
love it.
the only thing is, so what's the Griever song called again?
Maybe I'm a
Maybe
lion.
Online. Yeah, that's a song that starts out and you're like, "Ooh, that's awesome," and then like 45 seconds go by and you're over it. At least I am.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of that track, but like it's cool. Like the progression of music and boss fights in that end sequence is so good. Like,
So good. Have you ever heard the Black Mage's version of Maybe I'm a Lion?
oh yeah.
It's like the random like voice that comes in right after the beginning, and it's like maybe
Maybe
I'm a
a lie.
lion.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know what it
why?
was about like early 2000s stuff, but just having a vocal clip that says the name of the song is a huge thing with this. I remember there's also that Smash Brawl remix of all the Metroid songs where it just like had a voiceover just to have a voiceover.
That's amazing. I don't think I've ever heard that.
Baten Kaidos has a couple things like that where just really silly. But
I've never played that game. S- Can
play
we
it.
interject for a minute?
Play it.
Apparently, I'm going to soon.
Maybe we'll
Bam,
see.
Bamco is apparently remastering it. Yet Xenosaga was too much, and we weren't gonna get money for it.
Okay, well to be fair, there's a lot more stuff tied up in the rights of Xenosaga than there is with Baten Kaidos because that was an original IP. They didn't.
Apparently, Bamco owns the rights to 1 to 3. They could
To
do
one.
it. They thought about it, but it was a money
It was. It
issue.
wasn't worth like doing to make money. No, there's still
Yeah.
like licensing things that they'd have to take into consideration, and but yeah, no, it really sucks that that wasn't a thing. And but you never know. We never know. We can. I think we're on the cusp of game preservation hitting a frustrated
Uh,
critical mass
for sure.
before
Well,
it
there's
starts
been
to
so
expand.
much like pushback on people like saying, "Hey, we need game preservation." Like, look at Dark Alliance came out of nowhere. Nobody was expecting that.
Dude, do you want to play it after this? Does it have online? Could we like
I don't think it does.
fuck.
I'll look into it.
Okay.
Chat about it, but
Sorry. I mean that's an aside, but like it actually has relevance because the FF8 remaster is a thing, and I think that was sort of a way to sort of broach that like, well, it's not just a straight port. We're actually fixing up a couple things, making it more relevant,
making a few things worse.
making a few things worse.
Like background Sid still makes me laugh.
Oh, because well, that's what happens when you have pre-rendered backgrounds and you don't. Yeah, that's
don't
really
model.
annoying. Really annoying. I mean,
That was so funny.
it's a kind of half-assed remaster in some ways, but like, I'm glad it exists. Like, I'm glad that it didn't get. How do I say this? I think it didn't destroy my aesthetic enjoyment of the game nearly as much as the FF6 one did. The mobile port of FF6.
Oh yeah, that was disgusting.
Yeah, that destroys
Wasn't it 4, 5, and 6 that are all like weird smoothie?
5 and 6. Just
Oh,
5 and
4.
4 has a mobile PC Steam port that
Is
did
that the one that
change.
got switched to phones too?
Yeah. So it's based off the DS version, but it like changes a little bit of the
Like
UI.
those weird 3D chibi characters.
Yeah, but that's still the DS assets. They're just like slightly upscaled because
Oh, I thought
yeah.
they did like another smooth job on the sprites for 4. You know,
There's
like
the
they did with 5 and 6.
No, I mean maybe just
Maybe
like
it was 5 that I was thinking of.
oh
Honestly.
yeah, yeah. Five has the same like mobile like smoothing buttery shit. I don't think it looks as bad as 6. I think
No.
the character sprites still look like shit, but like yeah, no. But so like it, I'll take something like that over FF6's. But I think when it
For
comes
sure.
down to it, the 9 port is probably the best in all this because it's pretty much the exact same game, just with like
Yeah.
the added quality of life features.
I think the only thing they really changed in 9 was the font. And like I think the
Hmm.
font that they picked for the remaster is a lot better than the original font.
Oh yeah, yeah,
There's
which
some
is
like
never the
weird,
case.
yeah, right? It's like some weird, like ugly, strange. Like it had a charm to it, but I think I like the cleaner look of the remaster better.
That's how I know you like graphic design when you when the first thing that we center on is the font. But yeah, sorry. Brief aside, but I think it's relevant to the topic because I think the quality of life stuff does make FF8 a lot more playable. But let's backpedal a little bit and talk about some of the weirdness of FF8 again. I
Got
I
compression.
mentioned this a little earlier, but Grandmaster Norg.
Oh my god, the most out of left field part of the game that just it's like a little bubble. It's like
Mm-hmm.
this dude, Grandmaster Norg, he just came and gave us a bunch of money to make the garden, and now he's like, why are you trying to take the garden from me? I'm gonna speak in capitals.
Yeah.
Fucking dude, it was I fucking messaged you when I got through it, and I was like, so Norg, huh? Like they really went there. Why? Why? It's the
So
most confusing part of the game, and I wonder. Okay, sorry. I know I'm speaking a lot,
no, 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 no,
but
not at all. Go ahead.
I, I really want to know what came first, the Shumi tribe or Norg? You know what I mean? Like, were they like,
Well,
okay,
conceptually,
Norg is behind the garden, but we needed not. He's an alien, but okay, it'll be these other big dudes, and they'll turn into foxes when they evolve, and it's a higher being, and he's the one that has the money that made Garden. Fuck yeah! Give me
so
that pipe.
like, so I realize what they were trying to do with that. Like, I understand what the theme or the concept of it was. Is that like like the technology of FF8 is never really fully explained. Like where
Yeah.
they got from here to there is like never really talked
So
about.
is it assumed that the Shumis created the technology, and then he
Yeah,
just kind of came in and was like, "I'm gonna bankroll this."
and like repurposed it. Yeah, but it's never really explicitly said, and I kind of love that. But like the Norg stuff, I just okay. So it's very clear that this was a concept that was just storyboarded, and it just didn't get implemented or baked well enough,
Yeah,
right?
I think that that's what it is. Is they didn't have enough time to fully realize the idea, and they were just like, "All right, we'll do what we it and implement what we can, and that's it."
And the thing, and then like so it creates this like incredibly weird, jarring effect that almost works better that way. Like if that had been consistently well told, we wouldn't be talking about the Grandmaster
No,
Norg plot in this
absolutely
way.
not. And
So
if he was just a normal human being, we would have been like, remember Norg? Like, what? Dude was from like Chicago, whatever.
fuck off. I'm about to be really pretentious here. I'm gonna do this. Okay, I always try to work some like erudite fucking stupid film reference. I think a lot of FF. I mean, okay, you can easily make the argument that my appreciation for FF8 is misguided because a lot of the things that I like about it are just mistakes or poor design choices or just like lack of development, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's kind of similar to Breathless by Jean-Luc Godard because, like, okay, so that film was like extremely pioneering because it used jump cuts in a way, and the only reason why there were jump cuts in it was because the editor didn't really know what he was doing, and there was a lot of like lack of practice and understanding and blah blah blah. So I think there's a lot of that stuff with FF8 where it's like technically shitty or like poorly made, or maybe and not maybe on the fault of the developers, but maybe the time constraints. Like I'm sure crunch was insane for this game.
Which I don't think they had long between like, because they went Xenogears, FF7, FF8, FF9. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a lot of management going around, like, we're gonna take people off Xenogears and make them make 8, and then whoever's done on 7, and then we'll switch them to 9. You know what I mean?
And then 10 was in development, 11 was in development. Like 11 was probably in development while 8 was still being made. So like all that kind of shit was just. That's such a weird time.
So fucking crazy to think about that they like shout out like 6 like Final Fantasies in the span of like what 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And now it's like maybe we'll get one every 3 years.
Maybe
a good one every 5.
Yeah. No. That's a Square Enix pacing, man. It's just how it goes. But yeah. No. So I think. It's such a weird. So much of FF8's things are just. You know what? There are a couple times when that does not work well, and I think one of them is the giant lore dumps that happen, like almost like Kojima-esque lore dumps, where like there's a scene where Sid is just like, oh hey. Adea is my wife, by the way. And remember when y'all were kids? I didn't tell you that. Sorry. And then, like, there are huge plot revelations that are told in, like, one line.
Yeah.
Like, randomly. Almost like Frank Herbert-esque. Where there's, like, a Grandmaster Norg subplot that has no bearing on the overall plot. And then, huge, like, random piece of lore that changes the entire game. And then... back into Triple Triad. You know, it's like
there are 2 things that I need to say.
Mm-hmm.
The first is like, remember like the first like thought in your head. You leave D District Prison, the fucking missiles and everything, like you did all that. You show up at Garden, and the first thing they say to you is, "Are you with the Garden Master Norg?
Yeah.
Or are you with Sid?" And you're like, "What? What the fuck are you talking about?" Second thing, Sid Kramer is a fucking piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Massive piece of shit. My reasoning, there is a point in the game where he's basically like, "Look, guys, I failed. Squall, you're the leader. You're 18 years old.
Yes.
You're the leader. Goodbye."
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Do you know an 18-year-old right now? Think of that person and imagine that you were like, guess what? You're in command of the world's army. Sorry. Bye.
So, a big shonen trope is like putting somebody young and inexperienced in a position of high power, but
I know, but when you look
it's
at
undercooked.
Final Fantasy VIII and you look at shonen anime, you notice that there is a very key visual difference between the two, and you're like, this does not look like fucking Shinji Ikari. This looks like you know, like a guy who's kind of got his shit together, but he's still 18. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and there's some daddy stuff too there. You know, it's not quite to the level like Squall and Laguna
like
daddy
Laguna.
stuff. It's not quite as bad as like Shinji and Gendo. Is it Gendo?
Yeah, Gendo.
Yeah, it's not quite as like insanely traumatic as that, but
I mean,
there's
Laguna's
deaths.
still kind of shit.
Yeah, he like that's a. We'll get to that in a second because Laguna is a fucking subject, man.
I love him, but you gotta say he's done some terrible
Oh
things.
yeah, he sucks. Like, but hold up, real quick. That idea of like, I said earlier that FF8's pacing is like pretty good, but it's also shitty. Some of its plot pacing is shitty, but I think the gameplay is fine. Like, it gives
Yeah.
you like a big open part and then a story bit and then a mission and blah blah blah. But the story pacing, especially in the last act, is just like what?
Yeah.
What?
I would say not even the last act. I would say like disc 3.
Yeah,
Disc 3, because the last act is just Ultimisia's castle, and you don't really get
true.
much out of that. But like
True.
disc 3 is just like, hey, here's a bunch of stuff. Uh, deal with it.
And that brings me to the subject of characters, and how they fall on this plot pacing spectrum, right?
Yeah.
So, game starts out, introduces you the characters in a really interesting way. Like you have, is it Quistis or Quistis? I say Quistis.
Quistis.
Yeah. Oh, World of Final Fantasy says Quistis too, I think. Starts out, really interesting character. Then you have Zell, and like you know what to expect with Zell. Really interesting characterizations here. Quistis is cool because it's like she's this younger teacher who has put into a whole lot of responsibility really early. She's very much a prodigy in a lot of ways. She's still struggling with understanding that. Cool, great, real awesome blue mage, very awesome. And then you have Zell, who's like, oh, this is just a dweeb, he's a meathead, but yet he's like really well versed in history and he like knows his shit and he just acts the fool because he likes to.
Yeah.
And then like Renoa has that like air of mystery about her, like she's like very like driven and emotional and blah blah blah. Irvine's, when you first meet him, like he's mysterious and seems kind of cool
for like 5 minutes.
for like that's what I'm getting to. And then like Selfie is just kind of like she's like pretty standard, but she's interesting enough when you first meet her. And then so
Hold on.
No, go ahead.
For Selfie. Okay, no, you go.
No, go ahead, because I didn't have a lot to say about her anyway. So
Well, I was gonna
blanking.
say she kind of seems like one note when you first meet her, but later on with the Trabia stuff, she becomes more in depth as like a good, like I'd say a good character.
I'll say Selfie is the major exception to the rule I'm about to explain. So all these characters, all really interesting, but after like 20% of the game, they just go nowhere because
Quistis is the worst for it.
Dude, it's so bad.
There is so much potential for her to like grow as a character and be a really good thought out character, and they do nothing with her. As soon as you like leave the garden, it's like all the hope you had is out the window.
Yeah, and then she just becomes a squall simp. And like
pretty much
to an extent, we're all squall simps, but like it's different. Which kind of sucks. I don't know. I don't like that like weird latching. Like, I don't know. It just seems too like subservient for a character that doesn't really give that vibe at all. And I get like it's supposed to be like a little subversive, but like it just I don't think it works. But like the development of these characters never really goes anywhere. And it's like, especially Zell. Like Zell doesn't do anything after the first like 20% of the game. No. Like it's all Squall and Renoa.
There's like a little bit when Blom gets like martial lawed. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And like he's like, this is my hometown. And then you find out like the big reveal, they're all orphans or whatever.
Yeah.
Adopted.
That was supposed to like pad out development. That was like used in place of development, and that sucks. I don't like that.
But Selfie got development. like
Mhm.
the missile base, she was the leader of that. And then like you go back to Trabia and like you find like, hey, you're not just like the annoying like bubbly ditzy character. Like you're like, go, my friends, and they're dead, and I'm gonna go like talk to their graves and stuff. And it's like, wow, this is actually extremely depressing. And you picked the best character to have this moment.
Yeah.
Why didn't anybody else get a moment like this?
And then, because like I said, I think that she's the only real exception to that rule. Uh, but then even then, after that, it's just like that happens, and then it's like hard stop.
Yep.
Like there's nothing else. Even the character interactions taper off. They stop being as charming and funny,
Yeah.
and that
It's
sucks.
I wonder if it like we were talking before about development. I wonder if it was another thing where they did have plans to flesh out and realize these characters and make everybody like more in depth. And then they were like, I think you know what, maybe we should scale it back and put the focus on Squall and just make him, like make this his game instead
Yeah.
of another Final Fantasy VII where we have a Barrett and Dine moment and an Aerith and Tifa at Seventh Heaven and Nibelheim and Sid and Rocket Town. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, so I would even argue that FF7 has this problem too, but nowhere near to the extent. Like I think a lot of Final Fantasies do. I think a lot of Square Enix games in general do, and I think a lot of JRPGs of this time period do. And the
Yeah.
reason why is because remember, these are like games' sole purpose is to not be a piece of art. They're a product at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
like especially, I mean, look at Saga Frontier, look at Legend of Mana, look at Xenogears. All these games were, they had high, lofty ambitions, and development just happens, man. Production happens, and a lot of this stuff just gets cut, has to be trimmed down or streamlined or cut or reduced to cutscenes. Like these kind of things, they happen, and even in FF15, this is the case to me. I think FF15 is very front and back ended, but like there's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff in like the toward
The
the
middle
end.
is missing. You know
Yeah,
what I
and it's
mean?
just
Like,
kind of like you're the character. I think it works better in that game. Honestly, the development works better in that game than 8 or even 9. 9 has a huge problem with this. I always bring this up with when in Final Fantasy discourse. Like 9, it's like a character has a little moment and that's it. And then, I mean, it's not
I
as bad as 8, but
I
that
think I would
happens.
I disagree. I think that there are definitely characters in 9 that have a moment and then it's like Amaranth gets nothing, like at all. Quina, like kinda, but not really. Freya, Vivi, Garnet, Zidane. That's it. Like that. Like those four. That probably should have been who the game was about. Like
Yeah, I
that should have
mean,
been like your main party.
well, after
Like
the
even Steiner like gets a I would say like a fair share, but you know what I mean. Like
FF
it's
arcs
like
have this habit of dissolving into simping. Like Steiner kind of becomes a simp too.
for Beatrix,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's they just tried to double down on the love stories. I
Mm-hmm.
think like I think with 9 they tried to like take what worked in 7 and worked in 8 and like let's make it the best while taking what worked in 4 and worked in what I mean? It was like
Mm-hmm.
let's take everything that works and put it together except the ending.
And well, Freya too. After like the Sir Fradley, is that his name?
Trip Ratley.
Yeah. After that stuff ends, it's like she did nothing happens to that character. She's just like
No.
there. She's
I'm not
so
You're
sad.
right. Like but outside of like big party events, no. Like when they ship off to the mirrors,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like
So sorry to get off track. But I think this is relevant to 8 because this is a reoccurring thing that you see in Final Fantasy, and it's one of my biggest complaints about 8. That being said, Laguna.
Oh yeah. Here we go.
When I was a kid, I thought Laguna was the coolest thing. Look at him. Look at that luxurious hair. You know, like he looks cool as shit.
He's got the same hairstyle as Vane.
Yes, he does. Yeah, light side vein. Time paradoxes. Time paradoxes.
Vane is Laguna in the future, and then evil.
Middle Eastern Laguna. I'm about it. But yeah, Laguna as a kid, I didn't really kind of get. So FF8 has a lot. I mean, this is not just the localization. I did some research on this. FF8 has a lot of like campy / pop culture references in the dialogue. A lot of like really like jagged humor that I think is like hilarious, but like it would definitely different for Final Fantasy. And there's like a sort of Western or action movie camp to Laguna's character in general.
Oh, absolutely.
And his whole arc. And he's a dumbass.
He is. Absolutely. Like, 100%. There's, like, no argument that he isn't. I would love to see somebody start... No, he's not. He's the president of Estar. How did he get that? From killing the previous one. Stealing her and then launching her into fucking space.
Right, and that's how we do it. That's how we stage a coup. That's what we should do.
That's how we should stage coups.
That's exactly. You know
Launch
what?
them into space.
If we did that, I'm speaking specifically from an American point of view. If we did that with some of our leaders and all of our leaders, I mean, it wouldn't be that bad. This is my manifesto. really wouldn't be that bad.
Pull the whole Gendo Ikari.
Laguna Hikari or Ikari. Tell me about Laguna, John. Give me a character profile of Laguna.
I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna. I just want to talk about like a few things about Laguna, and like. For real, like, okay.
I think it's so funny. No.
I'm giving you a character for Google him.
I didn't mean like a wiki. I just, you know what I meant.
Age 28 or 48. Who knows?
Oh man, I that's not what I meant. I meant like. Let me hear the thoughts.
All right. So I do like Laguna as a character. He's a fucking dipshit, but like he's endearing, and like what he set out to do, I find admirable. You know, like he went to go get a loan back. Like that's great. On the other hand, though, you left your pregnant wife to die alone. And then after you rescued a loan, you didn't go back. You're like, I guess I'm president now. Like, fuck you. What are you thinking?
Yeah. Again, I don't know if that's bad writing or what. Yeah, I don't know if that was just like being rushed or like it just bad writing or what that was.
Gone back to Windhill at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Because like he was just like, okay, I guess I'm president now. I'll just like ride out my term, and then like maybe I'll send somebody to go get Rain, and it's like, nope, she's dead.
Yeah, there's a lot of like seriously questionable things where it's like you could have just said this or asked this or just like taken 2 seconds out of your day to do this thing, and
there's just a lot that I don't understand, and I wish like they wrote a book or something, you know what I mean? Like kind of fill in, like they've written like 5 Final Fantasy VII books about shit I do not care about. The fucking Turks side story that's not even about the Turks until like halfway through the book. Thanks. Needed that. Write a book about Laguna and why he didn't go back to Windhill. You know what I mean?
It's about the Young Turks instead. That's just it's the wrong Turks, the crossover.
It's fucking I can't remember his name. He's got like a hat. In
Real
the book.
person?
No, in the book.
I didn't read it. I didn't.
Oh.
I think all this. I hate supplemental materials, to be honest. I hate
Really?
having to. Yeah, I don't like it.
I love them if I give a shit about what they're written about. You know what I mean?
This is why I struggle with Nier, to be honest. I hate how much it requires supplemental materials.
It doesn't require them, but it's okay. If we're gonna talk about okay, Nier doesn't require supplemental materials, kind of like Final Fantasy VII doesn't require the compilation. You know what I mean?
Okay, I see
The
what you're
way that
saying. Yeah,
the
yeah.
way that I look at the compilation is a way to enhance Final Fantasy VII. I mean,
Hmm.
it failed for the most part, but it tried.
You know what? I like that, but I'll say it's like 15 in Kingsglaive, where
Oh
you
yeah,
don't need to watch it, but you should.
yeah.
Kind of a thing.
That's near and like the books. That's definitely 15 Kingsglaive and like
Sorry.
that 5 episode anime.
But no, I think that's a good point, though. Like, just having something to bring this together. I was kind of hoping the remaster might add stuff like this, but
Yeah,
at the same time, man, again, something about that ambiguity, that subtlety almost, like it kind of works to me.
it does. It does. I mean,
And
I don't think I would love the game as much as I do. Like for as much as this podcast or live stream is sounded like we're just sitting here saying like how much this sucks and this sucks. It doesn't because the game has left such a fucking colossal impact on me that I love it. And like that's why we're sitting here and been talking for like an hour or so about how much we love it.
yeah, no, I love this game despite all of its flaws. I think some of its flaws just like, I think this is such an interesting game to talk about it because its flaws highlight so many things about it that make it
Yeah,
stand out. And
absolutely.
it's like, I said this
It's
before, and I hate this term because I see a lot of like zoomers using it without like ever having seen a non-American film, but like FF8 is Kino in so many ways. I
you
mean,
know.
look at dude, seriously, it has like Resident Evil cinematography at in a lot of points. Cuz Square had gotten their pre-rendered single angle what's the term? It might
Background.
yeah, backgrounds, but like how everything is just like a single angle and you move through it. I guess pre-rendered.
Fixed camera.
Fixed camera. I'm a fucking idiot. But yeah, I mean, between FF7 and Saga Frontier and even Xenogears, like that had, there was a language that was being developed. And even
Yeah.
other games too, like the Capcom, Resident Evil, and so on, and other 3D games that were being made at the time. There is a language for this now, and like I think 8 it hits that like even watch the FMVs in 8, like they're like I guarantee the cinematic director of FF8 like loves Igmar Bergman. There's a lot of like Sven Nykvist esque framing in the shots there. Like it's so good. It's so
That's
good.
interesting. I've never seen any of what you've just referenced, but I'll take your word for it.
Watch The Seventh Seal.
The
And then
Seventh Seal.
yeah. And then watch FF8. No, there's probably like so different, but watch The Seventh Seal. You should. Again, going back to the erudite cinematic references. But no, for real. Like, I mean, I'm not going to say it's like, groundbreaking or like so phenomenally like well made or composed, but compared to a lot of what was going on at the time, and even compared to what Square was doing before, I think FF8 is a bit of a step ahead. And there's some jagged stuff there too, though. But
Absolutely. I would say it was a huge leap ahead, especially in terms of like graphical quality. Like going from 7, which was 3D versions of pics of like 32-bit sprites, into that illustrious masterpiece.
I mean,
But
people
like, you
like
know
to,
what I mean? Like
yeah,
3D people that look like
like
people
people.
in this like insanely beautiful pre-rendered backgrounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I think it was a graphical shift that was more than just setting. Like
Yeah.
everything had a lot more detail. It was like there was a whole new thing to consider because the idea of scale in FF8 is so different than 7 because like you just said, like the characters are people and not Legos. So like the way that they move them along the backgrounds was different and they had to scale things differently to like based on that. And
Yeah.
if you look at just like the scale of that game, there's not too much of it that looks like well that's way bigger than it should be or smaller than it should be, except some of the overworld stuff. That looks a little like
Whereas when you look at FF7, like especially in a wall market, you got these tiny little people and then these big cannons and hands and like weird dome structures and tents and you're like, this is just like such a weird area. Things
it
don't.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And Esthar was really mind blowing to me as a kid because I was like, I always thought it'd be cool if there was like a giant city, but you can't explore the city, you just kind of see it.
Yeah.
And that was sort of a way. I mean, it's also a little funky because like you're this like big thing walking around like flat.
The like weird, clear, raised platforms.
Yeah, luckily the same textures for that were reused in FF7 remake. So we we have that going for. But
You gonna talk about the flowers?
no, like the flat
hands?
like background, but no, I mean like that was super impressive. And I mean, there's parts of Esthar that seem a little rushed, but like as a whole, it's a kind of a really interesting city for Final Fantasy,
Absolutely.
I think.
Oh yeah, 100%. The fucking man. I remember the first time I saw like the reveal of Esthar. I was so mind blown, but like even to this day, it's probably one of my favorite like cutscenes in FF8. Like the ladder and like the big mirror wall, and it's just like blinking and blinking, and then you get on the elevator, and then it's like, whoa, look at this crazy shit! Bet you didn't know it was here. Love it.
And I like how that contrast of like Laguna's arc being the ruler of Esthar essentially, from going like from these like weird surreal dream sequences to this like fully realized mecha city, that's bizarre. And like, can we talk about the dream sequences?
Yeah,
Real,
absolutely.
like what? Like what?
I think that's one of the things that I still don't complete. Oh wait, never mind. It was Alone.
It was Alone. Yeah, she was putting
Yeah,
dude.
she was sending Squall back. Well, the party back in time to
Yeah.
see what Laguna was doing. It's still just like a completely baffling like decision though.
Yeah, no, the whole Alone thing is really weird and kind of doesn't make any sense. Like her power level doesn't really make sense. Like
It's over 9,000.
That's one of my biggest issues I think with the story is like Alone as a plot device. It just like it seems convenient because it's very clearly like a Days of Future Past Kitty Pride situation.
Yeah.
Like but it's just I don't know, something about it just a little funky. But yeah, it makes sense, but it just like it doesn't. But the fact that it's so fucking weird and jarring, like I hear people complain about like the sequence is breaking up the pace of the main story. But I love the concept of being able to explore the world of FF8 in a way that you don't know how the fuck it's connected. You don't know if
Yeah.
it's connected.
No, that is a great way to look at it. Is it's a way for you to explore another part of the world, and you don't know, am I ever gonna go there?
Hmm.
What is this? Is this just like a one-off episode of a place that they've just created for this, and then like later on in the game, it's like, oh shit, I'm here. Like this is Delling City or Windhill or SR, I guess.
And the game drops you hints like they'll leave a treasure chest or something that you can't get to, or like something that like gameplay or mechanically that like you're like, oh well, I should be able to draw that, but
Oh
you
well,
can't.
that's the Lunatic Pandora.
Hmm.
When you
Oh
go
yeah,
through
exactly.
when you go through his Laguna, there's a thing like if you pull a certain latch
Right.
and
It
then you come back to
affects.
the Pandora later as Squall in the team, it's like, oh look, you can go down here and get magic or a
Yeah,
luck scroll.
and it's interesting because the things that you have like that you can change in the future or whatever, like
That's something
highlight
that I
the
sorry.
story importance of it.
Yeah, that's something that I wish like was more realized.
Hmm.
Was doing things as Laguna to leave an impact as Squall.
Yeah,
It's
the
kind of
Chrono
it's kind of
Trigger.
like Chrono Trigger. Like I know there's like a series of chests. If you don't open them
Yeah.
at a certain point in the game, and then you come back at like 1000 AD or something, it's like, oh, they're upgraded armor. It's like, yeah,
Every like most Final Fantasies do that. FF6 does that. FF7 does that. There's a lot of stuff like that. It's funny because FF8, despite being a game about time paradoxes, like doesn't really deal with like
time paradoxes.
time paradoxes like gameplay wise, which I think is kind of awesome. It's kind of like bold in a way, like
It's
I
bold to be about the thing and then not
I'm
touch
not.
about it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's that's such a great thing.
That's FF8 in a nutshell. Like,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
but like I really love those sequences because uh, Final Fantasy is always played with side stories or you have the Madoin and flashbacks in 6. You have like the Nibelheim stuff in 7. I 5 kind of has something like this with like the Warriors of Light. But either way, like it's a reoccurring thing of like you playing a different character in the world or whatever, or like in a
Yeah.
different area. So like and like seeing these characters that you don't have any idea who they are or what their significance is, and then like the battle theme just being completely different and unlike anything else musically or sonically in the game. And it's just like I love it.
Back to the soundtrack. Hell yeah, Fight Your Way is so fucking good.
It's really good.
Also, 8 has like some of the best mellow songs in the entire franchise. Like Blom. I don't it's not called that. Yeah, Breezy.
Breezy, yeah.
Breezy. Uh Fisherman's Horizon. Blue Fields. Like all three of those are just like the most like relaxing and chill. I think I said this to you before. The only other song that I would put on par with Breezy is Dolly
That one's
by Hook
good.
9. Real
Uh,
good.
however, Shuffle and Boogie haunts my dreams.
So
I
good.
I I took a nap at some point a couple weeks ago,
And Shuffle and
and
Boogie was just playing.
and it was just playing, and I was like, "What the
Woke up
fuck
and
is happening?" And I woke up, and it was like from another room. I was hearing it, and it was my girlfriend playing FF8 on the Switch, but it was handheld, so like this, the sound was more compressed and tinny, and through like walls, it just sounded like a fever dream, and it
just
just
tripping in your sleep. You're just like, what is this?
man, we didn't even like talk about the gameplay significance of Triple Triad or the junction system.
Why should we talk about those things? A million people have already talked about those things.
Thank you. I kind of wanted to like broach subjects about this game that like are a little bit more under the radar. I mean, it's not like
Every fucking internet conversation I see about Final Fantasy VIII is junction system bad.
I like it.
Okay,
I don't think it's
not.
bad.
It's okay. Like, it's a nice change of pace than just grind. You know what I mean? It's
Even though
like
it is grinding, it's just a different flavor.
yeah, it's a different flavor of grinding. It's grinding that I can go sit on the beach and absorb blizzards for 20 minutes and then not have to worry about anything else for the rest of the fucking game.
Well, I will say that I like the I'll say non-linearity of how you get things in this game because you can refine triple triad cards into
Oh yeah,
spells. And I think
that's amazing.
it's awesome. I mean, granted, if you're not playing triple triad, you're gimping yourself. But like, I think it's really interesting how there's multiple ways to acquire essentially the same thing.
Yeah, it's not even just cards though, like just items
Items, yeah.
in themselves, M stone pieces. You know what I mean? Like it was just a really cool way to do things.
I will say though, I don't think the battle system in FF8 is super great. I don't think the combat design is fantastic. I think a lot of fights are very vanilla, just kind of. There's not a lot of strategy involved.
No, there isn't. There's no strategy at all. Like really, like Ultima Weapon. I think it's Ultima Weapon. No. What's the one in Ultimisia's castle?
Ultimate Weapon.
No, that's Omega, isn't it?
Oh,
Omega
yeah.
Weapon's Ultimisia's holy fuck.
Yeah,
Omega
you're right.
Weapon is in Ultimisia's.
You're right. Yeah.
Ultima Weapon is in the deep sea underground.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh my god. Before we end this, I need to tell you about it wasn't the last time I played it, but this was probably about like 5 or 6 years ago. So I went to Deep Sea, I did Bahamut, I went and I was fighting Ultima Weapon and I was getting murdered. So hard. So bad. I think they took out two of my characters and I was like 200 health.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah.
And I'm like Renzo Kukin just like trying to ride it out, and then he hits me and kills me, and then Phoenix kicks in, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me! And then I fucking hit him with two more, kill him, and I'm like, this right here is the single best gaming moment of my life. Like, it was just like that, like, incredible high of having Phoenix swoop in and save your ass, and then just finally like deliver the final blow.
Yep.
It was 10 out of 10.
It hits. It hits.
Good moment.
Love me some Phoenix. So my problem with this game's battle system is that first of all, junctioning makes you overpowered. I've done a level 1 playthrough of this, and even on level 1, there's not a lot of strategy. I mean, granted, that doesn't really affect the game until like later, but even then, it's just kind of like, your main strategy is getting everybody to like 1 HP so that you can use their. It's not called limit in this. What's it called in this?
Yeah, it is. Limit breaks.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
In 9, it was switched to Dine.
Yeah, that's right. But like, I hate how RNG it is because even at 1 HP, you can still not get it, even with Aura.
Yeah.
So like. Because I'm being too granular, but Aura will make it so your limit break has a set % chance to trigger. The lower HP that you have, the higher chance it has to trigger. So obviously, min-maxing 1 HP has the highest chance. The spell Aura is a buff that makes it even higher. So you pretty much always get it, but it's still not 100%. So to me personally, there's no other reason than to not use that. Like, especially Squalls, Renzo Kukin, like, I don't think anything does as much damage as it. You can use Selfie's limit break to like cheese shit and just one shot stuff, but like who's
Yeah.
gonna, that's
If
like
you ever get anything useful with it.
it's like Yojimbo and FF10 like with on
Pay 'em.
full RNG. Yeah, it's silly. So yeah, that's kind of a problem, and it's funny because I'm a very annoying person about gameplay. Like FF5 is one of my favorite Final Fantasies because it has to me what I think is like one of the more involved strategic battle systems. I mean, granted, it kind of devolves into like the samey sort of thing endgame, but like as a whole, the game has a really good progression. But FF8 is just kind of like, yeah, you put a strong spell on your attack, and then you spam fight, hit
That's
the
it.
limit break. You don't use
Ultimate.
magic.
Ultimate attack, and then you're good for the rest of the game. Mm-hmm. That's what I did, like, on my recent playthrough when I fought Ultima that time. I was like, I'll put Ultima on attack, and I swear to God, like, 5 limits and he was done. And I'm like, really?
Yep, that's how it goes. However, the 3 times, is it three? Yeah, it's 3 times speed makes this game
Yeah.
so much better.
Dude, I think, and this might just be a me thing, but I think that all of these, like, RPG remasters need to have a speed boost.
I agree.
The one in
I agree.
12 was incredible, especially for grinding, because I think it has 2, 4, and 8. And I think I set it at 4 for most of like my grindy stuff, like just leveling up. But man, worth it. Worth every second.
Yeah, it like trivializes Yasmet. Like that's the hardest thing about that fight is just like sitting there and paying attention to it. So yeah, Square, if you do port 1 and 2, please add speed up options. Do it.
I think we deserve new ports of 3 to 6.
I think so too. My dream is a port of 6 and 5 that use the SNES sprites with the upscaled.
Like they did with Saga?
Yeah, but an option. I mean, this would never happen because it's too much work. But an option to switch between visuals, with all the content of the most recent version, because FF5 and
Switch
FF
between visuals from the Super Nintendo to like the new, like say it was Saga style.
yeah.
That's interesting. I don't know why they wouldn't. They added a fucking 8-bit or 16-bit mode in Dragon Quest XI.
Oh, that's a little different because that's a modern game that was designed in parallel
but
with
they-
that.
Yeah, but they did the whole game, like they.
Yeah.
Know what I mean? Like,
I mean, it's just like for a port though, like I get why it doesn't happen, but like, and it is kind of an annoying thing to have to do as a developer.
I'm
but
just
like,
saying, for FF6, it seems like it would be something very easy to do. Like,
but
if
to
you're already
switch
making
between,
it,
I mean,
yeah, if you're already making the game look pretty, why not just allow somebody to press a button to make it look shitty again?
I mean, you could press a button to make it look shitty. Can you just hit that buy button on the 6 mobile version, and then there it is. It looks like shit. But
Get it done.
I do like how the background and enemy sprites look in those remakes. But yeah, I mean, that's an ideal thing for me. But I don't know. I think I'm pretty happy with the FF8 remaster. I do have an issue with the jarring pre-rendered backgrounds with the new sprite or the new models.
I think that was the only thing that they could have done better on, like especially with how AI upscaling is going these days. Mm-hmm. And like you're seeing people post like, oh, here's, I think it was like a week or two after the FF8 remaster came out. Somebody like Kotaku was like, here's our article on somebody who ran FF8 through an AI upscaler, and it looks better than the remastered version. And I'm like,
Oh yeah.
why didn't we just do that?
Well, a lot of that stuff is like really myopic. Like, yeah, it did for these screenshots, but like, is that really gonna? But no. So I have a theory, and that the Saga remasters are and the Legend of Mana remaster are a way to sort of pilot test AI upscaling and remasters.
Do you think that's what they've been doing with those?
I think it's part of the reason, obviously. Building brand loyalty or like trying to bring more awareness is the big reason, obviously, in preservation and et cetera, et cetera. But I think they are sort of a way to pilot test. I have a theory that Square-Enix is probably going to be the company to really put one big foot forward in the game preservation thing that we have going on.
They're doing an incredible job. Like, no offense, I'm sorry if this sounds like shitty, but Saga was the last game series I was expecting to get every fucking single one a new version.
Yeah.
Like, in a million years out of every IPs that Square owns, I was like, Saga? Really?
What you saying, little bitch? No, you're 100% right. And I think that was like that was a market test in a lot of ways.
It had to have, like, that, and like, even like, because I know Secret of Mana didn't do as well as they wanted it to.
Oh, that was a whole, oof, boy, was that a different, that was just like, they Capcomed with that.
Capcomed it?
Yeah, like, that was...
I own it, I just haven't played it.
Okay, so, is it a good game? Is the Secret of Mana remake good? I don't even call it a remake, it's a visual
upgrade?
Yeah, it's a one-to-one the same exact game. Yeah. With like shortcuts for the spells. It's every screen is the exact same. The enemies spawn in the same spot. Everything works like 95% of the way it did in the original game. Just that the visuals are different. The remastered soundtrack sucks, despite having Yuzo Koshiro in it. What the fuck? How did that happen? And the voice acting is awful. But I think part of the reason why the Saga remasters happened were a slight course correction from that, like you said. So, yeah, here's...
Like, that was their first step the first step would probably be FF6 mobile, right? And then they're like, all right, let's try it a bit better and go Secret of Mana. And then they're like, we can do better. And that's when, like, AI upscaling and all that came out. And they're like, oh, let's try this.
And now that they're...
What should we do it on? Saga... Our most beloved franchise of all time.
Well, Saga also, like, I think they had a lot of passionate...
really passionate people.
People in, like, Kawazu, too, is, like, very revered among Square-Enix and, like, in Japan in general. So I think, like... And also to try to bolster sales of Scarlet Grace. There was a lot of reasons why that happened. But...
It's just super interesting that... like, they took a gamble on it and it's been paying off.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I mean, like, it's to me, like, because Saga's never really been something that, like, I see a lot of people talk about until, like, I started talking to you, really.
And I didn't really get into it until recently.
But so then, like, you've been seeing it a lot, and, like, I'm seeing a lot more people be like, oh, Saga, Romancing Saga, Scarlet Grace, Frontier 2, and it's like, it's cool that they took a risk, took a gamble, and it's paying off for them.
Hell yeah.
And I hope that this leads to more good things for their backlog. Like, I hope that one day we do see a Xenogears remaster or Parasite Eve.
That's on my list too. So I think the best thing you can do is, vote with your wallet, Absolutely. And this is to everybody. Like, if a shitty remaster comes out, don't fucking buy it. Be vocal about it. Like people were with the FF6 thing, and that wasn't even people being entitled. That wasn't like, like, this is like, I don't know, like, if people speak up about this kind of stuff and they vote with their wallets, and if they don't buy something because it's shitty or ugly or whatever, and they don't buy it, and then they speak up about it, that's how companies, react.
Yep.
And so if you give a company a reason to want to invest in something, then they will, because corporations obviously love money. So buy the Legend of Mana remaster, because this is like a pivotal point with AI upscaling in a mainstream remaster. So I think that's a good kind of footnote, right?
Yeah. Solid.
So, John, tell us where we can find you.
You can find me on the internet at twitter.com/sick. The second sick doesn't have a K. That's where you can find me, because Rogue North is nothing right now. I gotta write.
You like looked back to see if anybody was like judging you. Your
My
your
fucking
PlayStation Classic.
Classic.
Did you hack it?
No, but I want to.
Hack it. Yeah, it's really good.
I should.
Hack it.
I took it out of the box, and I think I played Ridge Racer for like 10 minutes, and then I was like, cool, back in the box you go.
I got it for $20, and yeah, it's a hack machine.
Absolutely.
But John, thanks, dude. It's always a pleasure to chat with you and to hear you talk about Final Fantasy. Before we go, say one last thing about FF8 that you never hear anyone talk about.
The Extreme is the best Final boss music of all time.
And thanks
Said
again.
It once, I'll say it again.
It's good.
That's it. Listen to the Extreme. Listen to the Final Fantasy XIV version of the Extreme too, because it's really good.
I just always think like I want a Final Fantasy shitty energy drink called the Extreme, and it's like stylized like shitty
Griever
90s.
on it.
Yeah, it's got
Like,
Griever on
the
it.
3D sprite of Griever too.
Yeah, but like a Rob Liefeld version of it, like, boy.
Oh, no. God.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening or tuning in. Once again, you can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/podcastjump, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all the fun stuff. And thanks again, John, for coming in and dealing with my bullshit.
What I deal with your bullshit.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye, everybody.